Hey, welcome back. So I have a brand new video for you today. I want to talk about the 35mm lens and why this focal length has become the forgotten focal length for me and the type of street photography that I do. All right, let's get into it. So I only have prime lenses. I have this 35mm, I have the Sony Zeiss 55mm, and I have the 85 all 1.8. And recently I bought the Sigma Art Lens 24mm 1.4. So the 35mm is actually the first lens that I bought with my Sony mirrorless camera. And before that I had the Canon 800D, also known as the Rebel T7i series. I had it paired with a pancake lens that was 24mm, and if you think about the crop factor of 1.6 times, it equal to 38mm, so it's roughly close to the 35mm, so it made sense to me to buy this lens. So the 35mm is actually the one lens that I don't reach for much compared to my 55 and 85. And I think I used it a handful of times since I bought it back in 2021. And I started to wonder why that is, because when I had my Canon set up, I really loved this focal length. And I started to reflect on the type of street photography that I like, and I also do, and also reflecting on how I evolved over the past many years. And so I started to watch a few videos on the 35mm and why it's so loved by street photographers all over the world. Why is the 35mm so loved by street photographers? The 35mm is the most common lens used by street photographers. Pioneers like Henry Cartier-Bresson and Vivian Maier shot on the 35mm. It's a wide-angle lens, but it's not too wide like the 24 or below, where it can introduce distortion, and it's not too tight like the 85 and above. The 35mm is a great beginner's lens and also very versatile. It provides a natural perspective that closely resembles what we see. It's very easy to work with, and it's very easy to compose with as well, compared to an 85 or 55, where you have to actually move further away and think more about composition. And you also have the option of cropping in afterwards. 35mm is a great versatile focal length, as I mentioned before. You can use it for street photography, you can use it for street portraits, although you have to crop in a bit in post. You can use it for architecture photography, and that's what I did when I bought it back in 2021. So the 35mm is the ideal daily carry. It's very small, lightweight and compact. It only weighs 280 grams, and it's ideal for street photography where you want to be a bit more discreet, and you can also get a bit closer to your subjects if you want to. Why don't I use this focal length more, and why has it become the forgotten focal length for me? I think the answer is that I've grown and evolved since I started doing street photography, and I have a better understanding of what kind of street photography I like. And one thing is that I don't want to be up close and personal with people. I don't want to invade their personal space. So that's why I bought the 85mm, which is ideal lens for me, because I can stand on a street corner, compose my photo, and take the perfect shot. If I have to describe my street photography style, I would say it's more of a fishing technique, and as I mentioned before, I like to take my time, I like to observe my surroundings, I like to slow down and also compose my photos and wait for the perfect subject to walk into the scene, compared to the hunting, where it's more about the hunt of the perfect subject, so it's a bit more opportunistic approach. So after all that thinking and reflecting of my street photography and my style and what I like and I don't like, and I decided that I would challenge myself, so I actually picked up the 35mm and I did a point of view video. It will be coming out soon, and I actually wanted to do something really different. So instead of doing what I always do, is, as I mentioned before, take my time, slow down, I actually did what some of the pioneers also did, is just be part of the scene, be part of everyday situation. So how did I challenge myself, and how did I use the 35mm? Let's have a look. With my Sony a7C and the 35mm lens, I have a very small, compact and lightweight camera setup and overall footprint. So I went out the other day and picked the most crowded place I know. I headed downtown to the most famous walking street in Copenhagen, called Strøget. I did that because there are always people here and it's easy to blend in with the crowd and be a bit discreet. I don't think with my current setup I'm very noticeable, and my GoPro is hidden underneath my jacket. Also, in a busy scene, there's a good opportunity to catch something or someone interesting. I normally shoot in manual mode, but after 5 minutes I decided to switch to aperture mode. This is just easier for this type of photography, and I'm walking a bit faster down the street and I don't want to miss a shot by playing with the settings. Also, it's a bit of a hassle. I did keep an eye on the settings from time to time, as the camera is not always on point. The aperture mode settings are dialed in. I kept my aperture to 2.8 and the ISO to 125. It's overcast today and the camera is underexposing the shots. The shutter speed is determined by the camera, which is why this mode is great for fast-paced photography. If you notice, I'm holding the camera much closer to my body and in a position where I'm ready to take a shot when I saw something interesting. Normally my camera is hanging off to the side until I need it. Maybe that's why I miss shots from time to time. If the A7C had a better EVF, I would have used it, but for now I'm using the small LCD. I'm used to it, so it's no big deal. The viewfinder and EVF is ideal though. At this point, I'm really enjoying taking photos, and I made a few interesting photos that I wouldn't have made because, first of all, it's a bit wider focal length than I'm used to, and also I saw things differently with this lens. I noticed random things happening as I was walking by and also took time to slow down and observe as the scene was really busy. So what are the takeaways? I found it easier to tell a story with the 35mm lens because 1, it's a wide angle lens, so larger scenes can be captured. 2, you can add more subjects in the frame and also subjects and backgrounds. 3, context and detail to tell a story about the subject and the surroundings. And this can lead to a very interesting and candid street photos of everyday situations. Final thoughts. So the 35mm lens is not a go-to lens for me, but I like having it in my street kit for occasions where I want to differ from my usual style and also capturing a bit more candid photos of Copenhagen streets. In one of my POVs, you can check it out in the playlist, I mentioned that the 35mm is more of an artistic choice for me. And also I cannot deny that this lens is very versatile and it can be used for different type of photography. And the photos that I made were also very different than my usual style, and it actually reminded me of classic street photography like the pioneers did. So I will definitely be keeping this lens in my street kit. Alright, so let's wrap up. So I really enjoyed using the 35mm for street photography, and also I did it a little bit different than my usual style, and I think that was the trick for me. And I've been thinking about actually selling this lens for a while, but now because I enjoyed doing street photography with it so much, I think I'll keep it in my street kit because it is so versatile, and I remember why I bought it and why I loved it on my Canon setup. Alright, take care, see you in the next one.